Good morning. Today we will be discussing the issues surrounding fossil fuel dependency in the United States. My name is Mallory Morton, and I am presenting alongside Sam Frank, Amelia Ivy, and Jamison O'Hara.
Okay, so first things first. Statistically speaking, around 81% of the energy consumption of Americans and U.S. businesses comes from fossil fuels. The four fossil fuels that make up this percentage, the majority of this percentage, are coal, petroleum, natural gases, and oils. They make up the majority of this percentage and the majority of fossil fuel consumption in America.
According to this graph produced by the U.S. Energy Information Administration, the top three leading energy production sources are all fossil fuels. These fossil fuels, which are crude oil, natural gas, and coal, together combined made about 70 quadrillion British thermal units of energy in 2021 compared to the 27 of renewables.
Here's some background, urgency, and complexity. Fossil fuels are non-renewable resources extracted from the ground. The creation of fossil fuels takes millions of years, and the supply is diminishing at an alarmingly fast rate. The over-reliance on fossil fuels by the United States has recently become a highly debated topic. Although not much effort has been made to combat the issue, and the inevitable consequences on the overuse of fossil fuels still remains a threat today.
Based on this background information, our argument is that the dependency of the United States on fossil fuels negatively affects the sustainability of non-renewable resources and threatens the security of the nation.
In our research, we found four main issues regarding the usage of fossil fuel consumption in the United States. These four issues are: it's a non-renewable resource, the unstable industry, the climate instability, and foreign affairs.
The first paramount issue that our group stumbled across was the rise of non-renewable resources. As explained by Tricia Gottlieb, who is an Assistant Secretary of Fossil Energy at the Department of Energy, petroleum, natural gases, oil, and coal are considered to be the four major fossil fuel titans of America. These four titans, as explained by Sam in the chart from the slide before, make up 76 quadrillion British thermal units of energy each month in the United States. The United States' dependency towards fossil fuels has continuously increased over the past few decades, meaning that America's overall fossil fuel supply is continually diminishing, and there's nothing we can do to stop it. Last but not least, the consumption of fossil fuels can be categorized into four different categories. These four categories include industrialization, transportation, residential, and commercial. If you direct your attention to the graph on the right, you can see the different displacement of fossil fuels on the left and the four different categories on the right. These four categories are all vital to the American society and serve as the backbone of our economy. You can think of these categories as gears in a well-oiled machine.
The second issue that we found was the unstable industry associated with fossil fuels. The diminishing supply of non-renewable resources presents a major threat towards the dependability of fossil fuels to continue to power the United States. James Cuss, senior economist known for his work in the macroeconomics of natural resources, pointed out that while the complete depletion of the world's fossil fuels is not an impending worry for this generation, irreversible damage to the climate is. And as the Earth's naturally readily available resources deplete and we have to tap further into the ground, prices of oils inflate. Fossil fuels also cause a massive amount of economic loss for the United States from inefficient pricing of fossil fuels through subsidies, as well as tax breaks and environmental costs. Edward Barbier, professor in the Department of Economics at the Colorado State University, stated from his study in 2016 that the United States loses $500 billion annually in trying to obtain enough fossil fuels to power the country while also keeping prices low for consumers. Inefficient pricing not only causes loss for the United States, but also blurs the reality of the crisis for citizens. Jevons paradox is an interesting phenomenon modeled by the graph on the right. Jevons paradox states that an increase in efficiency use will in return cause an increase in resource consumption rather than an expected decrease. The x-axis of the graph represents the cost of production, which is lowered by an increase in efficiency, and the y-axis represents demand for the product, which, as you can see, is steadily increasing despite the increase in efficiency. This occurrence has happened time after time again and causes issues in attempting to elevate fossil fuel productivity. Furthermore, this process contributes to the complexity of solving the fossil fuel issue.
Climate instability is another factor contributing to decreased sustainability in the U.S. Climate change is defined by the United Nations as long-term shifts in temperature and weather patterns. Scientists such as David Hodas, the director of Widener University's Environmental Law Clinic, have found that the essence of the global warming problem is that the current rate of burning fossil fuels releases enormous quantities of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere with relative suddenness. Findings such as these prove that burning fossil fuels is directly causing global warming. If you will direct your attention to the map on the right, you will see that areas like Tennessee have had very little effects from climate change. However, areas in red, such as the Northeast and the West, have had experienced significant temperature increases, proving that climate change is a real problem. However, climate change is not just about temperatures. The term climate also includes our physical landscape, precipitation, ecosystems, and more. Longtime ecologist Gene Likens explained that in recent decades, the acidity of the rain and snow has increased sharply over wide areas. The principal cause is the release of sulfur and nitrogen oxides by the burning of fossil fuels. Acid rain can cause deforestation, further harming our environment. Climate change has also affected sea levels, which therefore has increased flooding. The United States contributes significantly to global greenhouse gas emissions, which fuels climate change and worsens flooding. We have all probably seen in the news recently that there has been increased flooding in the United States, which puts plant, animal, and human life in danger. Finally, climate change has altered our ecosystems as we know it. Rapid changes may cause the displacement or loss of many species that are important to our environment, and their habitats may also be damaged.
The final issue we had regarding the usage of the fossil fuels was foreign affairs. The U.S.'s demand for fossil fuels has been exponentially growing, but it has to look towards other countries to meet those needs. That's where foreign affairs come in. In recent times, the countries we have depended on for fossil fuels have been making the gradual switch to renewable resources. This leaves the U.S. with little or few selections to go to when it comes to extracting fossil fuels. They then turn to the fossil fuel hotspots. Hotspots are regions in the world where oil reserves, mainly oil reserves, are prevalent. The problem with the fossil fuel hotspots is that they're highly contested over, and this often leads to major international conflict. The U.S. has been so dependent on the extraction of fossil fuels that will do anything in its power to get them. In most cases, this means the exploitation of inexperienced countries such as Mexico regarding the transborder reservoirs. This infographic is a good indicator of where the oil hotspots are, as well as the major oil consumers. The bigger the country is, the more oil reserves they have. And as you can see, Saudi Arabia and Iran are two major oil hotspots. The United States, however, is the only country that consumes over 36 million barrels of oil per day.
After conducting our research, our group devised two different solutions. The first of those solutions would be to implement renewable resources. The first row of the solution would be that we would no longer have a finite amount of resources, meaning that we could create whatever energy we needed when we needed it. No reliance on foreign territories means that every quadrillion units of energy that Americans need to produce could be produced on American soil, meaning that the United States would no longer need to rely on, as Sam said, Saudi Arabia or Iran for their energy supply. And last but not least, renewable resources are cleaner than fossil fuels. The implementations of energy sources such as hydroelectric, solar, and air would help for America to reduce its carbon footprint overall. However, the shift from fossil fuels to renewable resources would be expensive due to the new technology and machinery that would need to be implemented. Fossil fuels are also less efficient than renewables, and they require larger spaces to operate on, requiring for the United States government to set aside area that could be used for future developments.
The second solution that we devised was one that has already been attempted by many countries, the Paris Climate Change Agreement. The United States is currently part of this plan, and the pros of the Paris Climate Change Agreement is that it has almost universal support, as well as the place limits on carbon emissions from fossil fuels and the encouraging of countries to invest in renewable energy. On the other hand, the cons of the agreement is that it is not projected to lower global temperatures enough to make a significant impact, and that the terms are difficult to enforce, and the document has no permanent accountability. Overall, it is a step in the right direction, but it will not be effective enough to lower emissions enough to make an impact.
Our resolution is that a transition to renewable resources, such as nuclear energy as a substitute for fossil fuels, is necessary to increase sustainability in the United States.
The limitations and implications of this resolution are as follows. The limitations are the U.S. has relied on fossil fuels for a long time, and making the switch to renewables would require a major adaptation. Not all renewable energy sources are efficient as fossil fuels, And non-renewables employ over 900,000 workers in the workforce, and switching to renewables would allow them to mainly lose their jobs. Renewables are much more costly to extract than fossil fuels are. The implications would be that the economy would suffer initially, but would eventually improve, as Amelia said, with her economy. And it will be beneficial to both the ecosystems and the carbon footprint, diminishing the amount of CO2 that is released into the atmosphere.
Mallory, I'm going to begin with you. Give one specific way that your thinking changed as a result of learning about Sam's findings.
So I think that with Sam's findings, I was really surprised to learn that we have to kind of work with some difficult countries, and we have to make deals with countries like Saudi Arabia and Iran, and that I was really interested in how this is a really big deal with our climate problems. I didn't really realize that that there was a lot more to fossil fuels than just, oh, the environment's bad, oh, we're burning bad carbon dioxide into the environment. So I didn't really understand that there was a bigger foreign problems along with that.
Sam, reflecting on your colleagues' work, which one had the greatest impact on your overall understanding of the problem your group identified?
I think Amelia's had the biggest impact over the understanding of the topic, just because I didn't realize how much the fossil fuels played into our economy. Especially, I figured that it would strengthen it, but really, as Amelia found, the economy actually struggles under fossil fuels with its dependency over it. So.
Amelia, what is a way in which your team's resolution makes you think differently about your own individual research?
My own resolution in my individual report was that switching to renewable energy might be too costly for the United States, but after going over the research for my other team members and doing this presentation, I have found that while it may be difficult, it is completely necessary.
Jamison, what was the strongest counter-argument to the solution or conclusion your team identified, and why?
We actually had two solutions, so there's two strong counter arguments to go back to solution one. So for solution one, we were talking about implementing new renewable resources, and the strongest counter argument to this is, as Amelia said, it's very cost effective, and it could send our government into a recession, but it still is necessary. It's just going to take time and money and new technology and new land, and there's just a whole lot of factors that go into it. But so that'd probably be the biggest counter argument for solution one. And then solution two, dealing with the Paris Climate Agreement. I said that our group said that the biggest counter argument to it is that it's not really impactful enough to make a difference in the climate and our nations and other nations around the world for it to actually be implied and carried out.
All right. All right, thank you guys.